Hello, women of the channel. I'm Jackie Rives, your community leader, and welcome to another Woman of the Week. This week, we have the pleasure of getting to know Stephanie Louisa, senior consultant with the Channel Company. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you for having me on today.
Well, we're thrilled that you are joining us and we're getting to celebrate you. So, why don't we dive into the icebreaker question to get us started? And that would be, where do you live and where did you grow up if that's different?
Oh my gosh, so different. I actually grew up in Southern California in Orange County, 38 years there, and right by the beach and amongst all the people. And a few years ago, I actually moved to rural Missouri. So now I live about 9 miles outside of a town of about 3,900 people off of a single lane dirt road. And I don't see another human unless I choose to. So if you had to pick the polar opposite of Orange County, that's where I live.
That's
It's,
what I was
yeah, I
kind
was
of
going to say,
thinking. Like,
yeah.
they're very different.
It's really different. We actually have a large Amish community nearby. It's very uh, frequently I'll go to the grocery store and there'll actually be horses and buggies tied up outside the grocery store. So it's definitely different than the life I lived for most of my life.
Well, very cool. We should have some really interesting perspectives as we continue through this. So let's start with which inflection point, whether that be a pivot, a setback, or an opportunity, changed your trajectory. And what did you learn from that?
Oh my gosh. So I've been in my career quite a few decades now. And back in 2016, I had a major turning point. I was working in sales, really striving to climbing the ladder, sitting on 5 different boards as a volunteer, raising 3 children in Orange County, and just giving all of myself, and not necessarily in a good way sometimes. It was one of those things where I looked perfect on paper, overachieving, hitting all my numbers at work, just really striving to be, over the top, excellent at all times. Come 2016, which none of my friends and family knew, I was actually struggling with alcohol addiction. And
Mm,
my world came crashing down. March of 2016, everything just fell apart. And at that time, I hit what was my bottom. And it was really a strange moment for me because I really defined myself by my achievements, and I was
mm.
always exactly what everyone else needed me to be. And this looking back was just a lifetime trend of mine. I was always a good student and I was always a good, child for my parents. And I, no matter what job I did, I always, got the gold star. So for me to all of a sudden fail on such a spectacular stage was something that I was completely unfamiliar with. And it was definitely uncomfortable and something I had to really take a step back and figure out how to deal with. One of the things I learned is I needed silence. And living in Orange
Mm.
County, living in such a hustle bustle environment, you don't get a lot of periods of quiet. And for at least, oh my gosh, probably 8 weeks, I went radio silent. I just turned off all the noise. And for the first time, I sat back and did some reflection that I've never taken the time to do. And for me, that was such a huge turning point because, my world was shattered. And this time I had a choice where I could either have it, define who I was, or I could pick up those pieces. And for the first time in my life, I got to decide how they fit back together. And I got to rebuild my life from shambles. And it was very hard. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But there was something so beautiful in recreating a life that I wanted and discovering what I really wanted and who I wanted to be. And that was 10 years ago. I just celebrated, 10 years on my journey, and I've learned so much. And for me, personally, professionally, emotionally, just has had such a huge impact on my life. And it was such a turning point for me because I got to decide now what the rest of my life was going to look like. Part of the reason that, I'm now sitting in the middle of nowhere in Missouri. I appreciate calm, I appreciate quality time. I appreciate my friends and family more. I don't feel like I have to have my foot on the gas at all times. And I also protect my peace now. And that's something I
Mm.
really learned is to accept moments of quiet, to actually seek out peace, to seek out just quiet time. I don't need to sit on every board. I don't need to volunteer for every activity. And I don't have to be the constant overachiever. And coming to that realization that, people still love me and people still want to, they don't expect me to be that person I was. And there was something really, fulfilling about that. And it was such a monumental change in not only the way I work, because I worked like I drank. I was a complete workaholic. I never turned it off and defined myself by my career. And instead I got to be me and who I wanted to be. So it was really a beautiful journey. It was hard. There was a lot of work, a lot of self-reflection, but every step along the way is was worth it. And now, I share my journey with others in hopes of giving someone else out there hope that there is a better way to live their life. So that's why I've been very, very open and very public about it.
Yeah. First off, I just want to say congratulations on 10 years. That's extraordinary. And I can't imagine what that was like for you. But listening to your story, all I could think of is what you just said. You've created space for so many people and the way that you share it, and just where they thought they might be alone and that they were
Yeah.
failing, or, there's no one like them. So I just think that's extraordinary.
Giving yourself permission to fail is actually empowering. And that's
Oh,
something I had
yes.
to learn. Like it's okay to fail. And once
Yes.
you give yourself that permission, and there's so much learning that comes out of that and so much growth that yeah, I think I was so afraid of failure that I just, held everything together. I always joke with, zip ties and duct tape and
Yeah.
just allowing myself to fail allowed me to grow.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more there. What is something you wish you had known early in your career?
Not being afraid of change is definitely something.
Mm.
I've reinvented myself a few times career-wise. I worked in a lot of different
Yeah.
industries, everything from, civil engineering to I was a professional photographer for years. I owned a marketing agency in automotive and racing, and then I've been here at the channel company for 6 years, and not being afraid to pivot. And I took my tech experience from sales and then pivoted that with my marketing background, was able to come here and build a really nice career for myself. It's that not being afraid to change things. Professionally, I was never really afraid to make a change, but personally, I was
Mm.
always really afraid. Back in 22, I actually packed up after my youngest turned 18, packed up my life and moved to Idaho. And from Southern California, I was there a few weeks and I met an amazing man online who happened to live in Kansas. And we got married last year. I came out to visit him, went back to Idaho, stayed 30 days, flew back, and never left. So I took what I felt comfortable with professionally as far as change and I applied it personally. And it's led me to a life that I could have never even dreamt of. So I think that's the biggest thing is just telling myself, like, don't be so afraid of change.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Like, another congratulations. I told you this time was going to go by fast. What does success look like for you in this season of life?
Definitely having balance. That's a huge
Hmm.
thing is just having, work life balance, doing the things I love when the computer shuts down for the weekend, and you know doing interesting work with interesting clients and coworkers and just enjoying what I do. And that's where I'm at now. I just really like what I do, and going to work isn't taxing for me. I do enjoy it, so I think that speaks volumes in the things that I do with my clients. So for me, it's finding something you enjoy doing and use it to make a career out of.
That amazing. Okay. I know we're over, but I really don't want the community to miss out on your one piece of advice you would give to your younger self or perhaps a woman listening today.
Give yourself grace. We're so good at giving everyone else in our life grace, but we tend to be very hard on ourselves. And that's something I had to do is learn to give myself grace like I do for others. And once you can start to do that, then I think just your whole mindset changes.
Well, I'm so glad I didn't short that last question, even though we were over, because it is so true and it is a perfect place to land. Stephanie, thank you so much for spending time with me, sharing your insights, and allowing us to get to know you. We are thrilled to be celebrating you as our Woman of the Week.
Thank you.
All right, community members, please do comment. I know that Stephanie would love to see your insights and hear your stories. And this is just how we grow and learn and, build this community even stronger than it already is today. So until next time, have an amazing week.